Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of, well, it's not the Film Reel podcast. We've rebranded
Indeed.
as a Breath of Fresh Movies podcast. Same formula, same host, same everything, just different name, and hopefully a little bit easier to digest. I'm your host, the Sultan of Storytelling, Alex, and today we'll be talking about the hit film, well, at least in my opinion, it's a hit film. It should have been a hit film, A Knight's Tale. And allow me, without further ado, and no more gilding the lily, introduce the seeker of serenity, the protector of Italian virginity, the enforcer of our Lord God, the one, the only, Sir Jesse Frawley.
Happy to make my debut.
I couldn't quite do Paul Bentley's Jeffrey Chaucer because, let's face it, no one can do that.
Not
but
a problem.
I had to have a little fun with that.
I still appreciate it.
I had to have a little fun with that.
Absolutely.
We're back. Took a little bit of a break because you had some production commitments to fulfill.
It's true. I just wrapped up a show at Riverwalk Theater in Lansing called Unnecessary Farce. Had a blast, and I'm going to miss the cast.
All right. But before we get started, let's do some housekeeping first and foremost. Oscars recently took place.
Right.
Some big surprises. The biggest surprise was that Parasite, the South Korean film, the little South Korean film that could, won Best Director, Best Foreign Film. I think it won Best Original Screenplay. No, it didn't win Best Adapted. Who won Best Adapted Screenplay?
I cannot remember.
Okay, I thought it won Screenplay, but it won Best Picture. That was the big pop of the night. Was it winning Best Picture? And also, shockingly enough, we both saw it.
Yeah, I just saw it today, like an hour ago.
So, really quickly, let's go over what did you think? Was this the best movie of the year?
I think it was the most deserving. It wasn't my favorite, but it was the most original, I felt, and it sort of felt like it was a good reminder that we should keep broadening our palettes and, looking for more different and original techniques and styles in movies.
I can agree with most of that.
Right.
I agree that this is probably one of the movies, like, if you're ever going to watch a foreign film, this is the one that can bridge that gap into seeing more foreign films.
Mm-hmm.
Very well acted, very tight screenplay. The way the plot unfolds is very original. I will say I was expecting more for how much hype this was built up to. I was expecting something big and groundbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, and this is a spoiler for Parasite, which you should absolutely go in to see blind. I think it's a great way to enjoy it. The part where they unveil the bunker.
Yes.
I was like, oh my God, the family is a bunch of murderers or something like that. I thought there was going to be bodies in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh no. And like, it just, that was really just bizarre. And the tension scene of them escaping the house was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
However, can I say one thing that I think would have made this movie better, in my opinion? Mm-hmm. The director, Bong Joon-ho or something like that, or I believe his name is, or something close to that. Bong Joon-ho, sorry.
Yeah.
Has a past in making horror movies.
Yeah.
And how much better would it be if as we get to each member of the family starts integrating into the household, everyone else in the household can mention oh yeah, the basement's always been weird. And we see that clip of the little boy seeing the guy in the basement before you actually reveal what's in the basement.
Right.
If they had built up that there's something in the basement, or it's just it's always been a weird basement, and you hear weird noises, but you never that could have been so fantastic.
Mm-hmm. It did feel like there were kind of two separate storylines in one movie, and the switch was very sudden.
Yes, I loved watching the hustle of them getting into the house.
Yeah.
That was so good.
That was really
that
great.
was as good as any Ocean's 11 movie.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, very, very good movie. I liked it. Also, again, more spoilers. At the end of the movie, did you feel sympathy for the father being trapped in the basement?
Nah, not really.
Me too, because it's they built up this very sad moment, oh, he's away from his family and they're separated. But it's this motherfucker killed a loving father who insulted his smell.
Exactly.
It's God. That was the biggest thing. Listen, I understand what they're going for, and it could have played up better if they had kind of built that up throughout the entire movie or something like that. I don't know, something. But when this guy who's pretty likable throughout the movie, the poor father was pretty likable throughout the entire movie and very down to earth and very sympathetic to his call. and then like he just kills a loving father. Like I expected, like, okay, so we're gonna hate the fucking rich husband,
I was
right?
gonna say they didn't even make him that bad.
No,
Like,
he was a pretty decent guy.
yeah,
Like the only like slight moment was like, oh, was in like the two fathers are talking, and like the poor one says to the rich one, like, oh, you must really love your wife, or
mhm,
and like, you know, he kind of blows up, oh yeah, love, that's what we'll call it. And it's like,
right.
so you get the idea, like, okay, he married her for the looks and blah 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 to have a nice pretty wife,
Mhm,
but he's still a loving husband to his kids and takes care of them, and it's like
yeah.
he's not a piece of shit. He's not sleeping around. So we're not. I don't really. I didn't feel. I felt sympathy for the husband dying in front of his fucking family.
Yeah, it almost felt like they went out of their way to make him more likable than dislikable. I mean,
Yeah.
one of his last scenes is suggesting to his wife that they sleep in the living room so that they can be there in case the son who's camping outside.
Yes, exactly.
I thought that's a really nice thing,
right.
to do.
So I don't know. Like I said, like so, in the ending plays it up kind of very much like oh, it's going to be such a great moment when these families get to reunite, and this family gets to reunite after being broken for so long, and that poor husband who has to hide, and it's like, yeah, fuck him. He should be in jail.
Yeah,
You know, like I said, you could have played it up, but that's my opinion. But
Mhm.
I think Joker is a better movie this year. I think that was the better one. I'm glad this one won because I hope that it broadens the horizon of Hollywood and says like, hey, people will actually watch foreign films, and there's some good foreign films out there.
I agree. I mean, I think it really is time to move on past the idea that subtitles are going to
Make or break a
something
movie.
less
Yeah.
enjoyable, especially because it's becoming so popular to put subtitles on for something that's just in English, because like sometimes you don't understand what somebody
Right.
said and you want to just have it there just in case.
Mhm.
So I mean, there's really no reason that you should be turned off of a movie just because the whole thing is in another language.
If full subtitles are too much for you, I recommend Inglourious Bastards as well,
Mhm.
which is like 2/3 in a different language, 1/3 in English.
Yeah.
And Tarantino does it great.
Yeah. The only movie I've seen that kind of where the subtitles were less enjoyable was a movie called, I think it was Burnt. It's with
Never seen it. Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's with what's his name? Bradley Cooper, I believe.
Yes.
I think it's Bradley Cooper in this one,
Okay.
but he's a chef and he works in a kitchen with several people from different nations. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of different languages going on in the movie. And so they will actually put like in parentheses in Portuguese, in Italian, and
Okay.
French, and it's like you got to read that and then read
Yeah.
the rest, and they talk so fast. And it's like, yeah.
Also, okay, so before we get to A Knight's Tale, there's one last little bit of housekeeping I want to get to, which was a big part of our discussion about Whiplash last
Yeah.
episode was the missing file about the sheet music, which was a
Mhm.
big thing. And actually, funny enough, like after a few hours after we finished recording, I found a video about a guy with a theory that I thought was really clever,
Mhm.
which I believe I sent that to you, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay. So the theory basically is that and I can't remember the name of J.K. Simmons' character.
Fletcher.
Mhm. That Fletcher did steal it because in the scene when the two drummers are talking to Fletcher, the one that was the already assigned one, I forget his name. I'm sorry.
I forget his name.
The main dude,
Yeah.
that like not the main character, the main drummer, says to Fletcher like, I need a visual cue. You know this.
Yeah.
And it's like it suddenly went off in my head like, oh my god. Fletcher took it as a way to test him, like he tests Miles.
Right.
Like, hey, I'm taking this away from you. Can you rise to the occasion and be a better drummer and be a better performer? No, he couldn't. So that's why he went Miles. And it's like that makes so much sense to me. So as of right now, my theory is that as much as I don't believe that like Fletcher could stealthily, maybe Fletcher had someone else steal it. Who the fuck knows?
Right.
Because he does have that intimidation over people. Where like it's like if you told him to do something, yeah do it. My theory is that Fletcher was behind the missing book.
That makes the most sense to me. And especially that he would have had somebody else take it, because I don't think Fletcher would go
Fletcher himself would not do it.
Just walking past somebody.
So for those of you who didn't watch our Whiplash episode, you have no idea what we're talking about, but watch that one. It's
Watch
good.
Whiplash.
Watch Whiplash, and then listen to our podcast.
Mhm.
So today we are talking about the 2001 movie A Knight's Tale. This is based off of the Canterbury Tales book, which is actually written by the real Geoffrey Chaucer. It features a bunch of short stories. One of them is A Knight's Tale, so it's loosely based on it. So we're just going to do a quick summary of the plot, and then we'll talk about what we like about the movie, what we don't like, and any other kind of fun little notes. So at a jousting tournament in 18th century Europe, a young squire, William Thatcher, Rowland, and Watt discover that their master, Sir Ector, which is a very like every time for years I thought it was Hector. And it's like,
Right.
wait, like why is there a Spaniard in Europe? You know, like it just didn't make sense. Has died. With only one more pass, he could win the tournament. The William decides to wear his armor and impersonate him to take the prize. Although only nobles are allowed to compete in tournaments, William is inspired to compete and win more prizes. Roland and Watt would rather take their winnings and leave, but William convinces them to stay and train him. While traveling, the trio encounters a young Geoffrey Chaucer, who is the one of only two real characters in this movie. Geoffrey Chaucer and Prince Edward are real people in history. Everyone else is made up. Okay. I think Count Adhemar is based on a real person, but very, very loosely based.
I was gonna say almost everybody in Game of Thrones is based off of historical
figures.
What
was the War of the Rose or something like that? Yeah. So they made a young Geoffrey Chaucer who is poor and much like them, and they find him naked, which is a very funny bit.
Oh yeah.
He agrees to join them and help forge a patent of nobility so William can enter and assume the name, the greatest name in the entire movie. I love this name. Yep. Sir Ulrich von Liechtenstein from Gelderland. the great name.
It sticks with you.
It sticks with you. But William is brought before the summoner, Simon the summoner, and Pete the partner. Chaucer has a gambling problem and is in their debt. William demands Chaucer be released and promises payment. This is when Geoffrey Chaucer truly joins the group because he sees that William is truly a noble man who will take care of him, even though he's not really a nobleman. During the conversation, William's armor is damaged very badly, and he goads Kate, a female blacksmith, into repairing it without payment. He wins the tournament sword event, enabling him to pay the debt as well as pay Kate. In the joust, he faces Sir Thomas Colville, who withdraws from the tournament after being injured by William, although they exchange a ceremonial pass so Colville can retain his honor of having never failed to complete a match. The proceedings, easy for me to say, are observed by Jocelyn, a noblewoman with whom William has been infatuated with earlier in the movie, and Count Adhemar, a rival in both the joust and for Jocelyn's heart. In the final joust, Adhemar defeats William at the prizing ceremony. William swears revenge on Adhemar, who then taunts William, quote, "You have been weighed, measured, and found wanting."
Great line.
Do you know what that means?
No, I don't.
Okay, I didn't know what it meant for years. I'm like wait.
I am saying it's a great line.
Yeah, it's a great line. It's going to be better when you find out what it means. So for years, I'm like, what does that mean? Like, you've been found wanting? Like, people actually want you? Like, how is that an insult?
I just figured it was like, yeah, you leave stuff to be desired.
That's basically what it means.
Okay.
So what it means is when you've been weighed and measured and found wanting is like basically like you've been weighed and you've been measured, like, but you've been found to be lacking the proper measure, the proper weight to be desirable, essentially.
Yeah, so, that's kind of the vibe I got from it.
Yeah. Which again, great insult.
I love it.
Yeah. Very, very old school insult. Like if you could somehow pull that off in real life, more power to you. Kate, the blacksmith, joins William's party and forges a new lightweight armor complete with Nike logos, which great bit. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
In the following tournament, Adhemar and William are both assigned to tilt against Sir Thomas Colville, but they learn that he is actually Edward the Black Prince. Unwilling to risk harming the future king of England, Adhemar immediately withdraws prior to their match. William, despite his friend's objection, chooses to joust against Edward anyway and addresses him by his name, further earning Edward's respect. Adhemar is called away to a battle and like a war, basically, because he actually is a true nobleman.
Yep.
And William achieves several victories in his absence. William proves his love to Jocelyn by failing, like basically not competing in a tournament in Paris, where like he just sits there and lets people beat the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Which is very funny because all the other companions have put all their money betting that William would win. So it's a really great bit. But Geoffrey Watt is yelling at Geoffrey like, Chaucer, we're gonna lose everything, and he just like coming. That's why it's called gambling. Just, like, really great. But she asks him to purposely lose, in contrast to all the knights who promised to win in her name. And when it looks like he's going to be eliminated, she asks him to win the tournament in her honor afterwards.
Yeah.
So the group travels to London for the World Championship, and we get a flashback of Will recalling leaving his father to squire for Sir Ector and learn to become a knight in the hopes of, quote, changing his stars, which is, again, great line for that's a really good stuff. Adhemar has also arrived in London and announced that he is in negotiations with Jocelyn's father for her hand in marriage. William dominates at the tournament, but during a break from the tournament, he goes and visits his father, who is now blind, which was one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Yeah, that's a heartwarming
We'll talk more about that in a minute. Adamar discovers his true identity and alerts the authorities. William is arrested and placed in like a stockade, essentially, and is defended from the hostile crowd from his friends. They come to stand by him and like try to shoo them away.
Mm-hmm.
Just as the mob is about to reach its frenzy, Prince Edward reveals himself from the crowd. He acknowledges that William's honor and ability to inspire and Fred's dedication is the best traditions of a knighthood. And then Edward announces that William is in fact, quote, beyond contestation, descended from a royal ancient line, and dubs him Sir William. William returns to the tournament to face Adamar in the final match, but Adamar cheats with an illegally sharpened fence lance. The lances are basically designed to be blunt at the end, so that way like when they hit you, they're gonna hurt, but they're not gonna kill you. He uses the one that is designed to kill someone.
Yep.
Seriously injuring William. Entering the last pass, William is down by 2 points and must unhorse Adamar to win, something that Adamar has never been unhorsed, which is something he brags about early in the movie.
Yeah.
You know, Chekhov's plot point, and you just got bit by my cat.
I did.
Okay. Anyways, William demands that he be stripped of his armor, because he can't breathe because he's been wounded. While Chaucer buys time performing his introduction of William that he admitted earlier, which is a great bit because he announces William by his actual name to his father and in the crowd and everything like that, and it's a big moment. William, unable to hold the lance due to his injury, asks him to be strapped to his arm, and finally against the tilt, he actually unseats Adamar, charging at him, saying his full name, and on the ground, Adamar experiences a vision of William and his friends telling him that he has been weighed, measured, and found wanting, and to welcome to the new world, which, again, great bit.
Take that.
In the ensuing celebration, Jocelyn and William embrace, and Chaucer remarks that he should write an account of these events. Clever. So, what did you like about the movie? What did you not like? What were some of your favorite scenes? Tell me what you're thinking.
Okay, so I love this movie. I mean, this was one of my first favorite movies in my entire
This is
life.
one of the best sports movies I think, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's a terrific film, and it holds up. I mean, it's as good today as it was.
It does not feel dated at all.
Years ago. No, it doesn't.
No.
And that is saying something, because the movie uses a ton of music that was obviously very topical at the time.
So the one thing the movie does, and this was a decision by the director, is that they use modern music in place of old classical music from the 18th century. Or 14th century, pardon me. Like, for instance, like in the opening bit, like when the joust is going on, they have "We Will Rock You" playing. At a dance, they dance to David Bowie's "Golden Years," which is, again, a great scene. And they use modern music. And the reason the director did that was because back in the 14th century, music was a big part of the culture. And he's like, you're not going to get that same feeling by listening to the damn music they used back in the day. But you use modern music, you get that same enthusiasm from the listener, the audience.
It's more accurate just for the tone than you would think.
Yes.
It doesn't feel accurate for obvious reasons, but I think they made the right choice. It'd be very hard to get away with that now. I think, with games.
I think it was, for certain shows, yes, but for this movie, I think they were going for a more modern vibe, and it worked very well.
Yeah.
I have to talk about the incredible acting from across the board.
Oh yeah.
Heath Ledger, Rufus Sewell, who played a very underrated. I don't see him in anything else.
I know, and it's a shame. He was like the original recurring bad guy.
Yes.
I mean, if you wanted a great villain in a movie, Rufus, you could not go wrong going with Rufus Sewell.
Mark Andy, who would play
Mark Eddy,
Artie, who played King Robert Baratheon in Game of Thrones.
I loved figuring that out.
Alan Tudyk, who is basically anytime that a great voice is being used in a movie, it's Alan Tudyk.
Right.
And the best of them all, Paul Bentley as Jeffrey Chaucer.
That's an all-star cast.
So great. The writing is really good. It can be serious. It can be comedic. It can be drama-filled. The scene of William meeting his father for the first time in 20 years or something like that. It's great because he meets his father and his father is blind, so he doesn't recognize William or his voice.
Yep.
And it's this really emotional moment of William telling his father your son William's done very well. He changed his stars, and like
Yeah.
it's just like oh
God, that's
it's so good. Again, like it could be so goofy at times, but when it really wants to be meaningful and powerful, it nails it.
Yeah. I also want to point out, like, speaking of research, I mean, they did do their research into this movie, which you don't always see from kind of that early 2000s period in movies
Yes.
and before. But just small details like that. So his father was a Thatcher, and that's why his last name is William Thatcher, or his name is William Thatcher, right? Because your trade, if you were a lowborn, your trade was your name. That's where Smith came from.
Yeah,
blacksmith.
Also, the fact that they used a lot of real horses and armor and like actually did jousting.
Oh yeah, it was it's stunning, really, to like watch without all the special effects added in. It makes such a difference.
Here's a fun fact for you. In the opening shot of the movie, you see like one knight getting in a tilt, and he falls from his horse and lands on the ground really hard.
Yeah,
that was actually Heath Ledger's stunt double, and that was like the only time like he actually fell from the horse, not on purpose.
Wow.
And the director loved the shots, and he's like, "Well, that's just using the opening credits where like no one knows who it is, and just so it was a mistake, and the guy was fine."
And I love that too, because I mean, I assume that was in the story that was supposed to be a shot of Sir Ector getting killed on his tilt or something. Because I mean, our entire introduction to Ector is that he's dead.
Yeah, they literally like they're like standing over there watching him take a shit, and they walk over and like, oh, he's dead. Yeah. And it's like there's no explanation for why.
So I assumed that when that was him getting hit by the lance, and it's like it set something in motion. That was the end.
Yeah. So I love the dance scene where they had like set to "Golden Years" by David Bowie, which like that song's fantastic, but like with that scene, it works so well. And again, it could easily be cheesy and goofy, but it works. The vibe in the movie works. All the actors are great. The chemistry between all the actors is great. Like you actually feel like these guys are legitimately friends and have known each other for years.
Yeah.
Two things that really stand out for me in this movie, though. The finale, like the final competition between Adamar and Heath Ledger, is perfect from start to finish. It plays out like I'm a wrestling fan. This is like classic wrestling.
Yeah.
The bad guy cheats to get the advantage. The baby face is down. Yeah. He rallies and he's able to win. It like again, like the moment when like William charges in screaming his name, who has his father and in the love of his life watch on. Again, sounds so cheesy, but it works, and you're right there with him, excited.
Yeah, and I mean, knowing that he's the main character and this is the finale, you kind of just, even if it's your first time watching, you sit there with this assumption that he's gonna win, and it's gonna be okay. But you got to remember that he's jousting without armor and the lance tied to his hand. So it's like if anything goes wrong, he is very much dead.
Yes. And so it's so great. Lastly, the best part about this movie, every fucking scene with Paul Bentley.
Yes.
Look up, like just Google Paul Bentley Knight's Tale and watch some of his introductions for William. Like this guy is amazing, and like he's able to like just weave the crowd and bring them up, and like he feels like an old-fashioned hype man, and it works so well. It's amazing. And a lot of great like little things he does. Like he has like the first time he has the introduction to William, he does the "My lords, my ladies," and all those nuts sitting on a cushion, which is a Beatles reference. Are you aware of that one?
I missed that one.
Basically it's like John Lennon, I think, during a concert, like, oh, the people in the front row can cheer, the people in the way in the back cheer louder, the people in the front row just wrinkle your fucking jewelry and something like that, basically. Also, okay, do you know the backstory behind the scene when they're at the sword competition and William wins a round and Geoffrey Chaucer does a big proclamation about William's greatness and like how he is, we walk in the garden of his turbulence and no one reacts. And then all of a sudden, Roland just goes, yeah, and everyone starts cheering. Do you know the backstory behind this?
I'm sure it was improv.
They did it in front of a group of Czech actors and extras who had no idea what the fuck Geoffrey Chaucer was saying.
Oh,
so like they're all just standing there like waiting for like what do we do now? And so the actor Mark Edley just started and everyone started cheering.
Wow!
And the director's like loves it so much that they kept it in the film.
It fits the tone of the movie so well.
But like that's brilliant.
Yeah,
that is brilliant stuff.
Perfection.
Okay, is there anything to talk about that's amazing about this movie before we get to the negatives?
Oh, I mean, plenty. Honestly, I mean, I want to say again, they really, even though it feels like it should be a dated movie that just wanted to be a great movie but didn't
Right.
really do all the research. They were pretty accurate with a lot of stuff, and Adamar's a good example too. The line about entering negotiations
Yes,
with
that
the father. It's like
that's
that's
100%
accurate. I
accurate.
mean, it's like that is. It's like I'm forming an exploratory committee to run for president. Essentially, no, I'm entering negotiations with her father to discuss marrying her because obviously this noble guy and
And women had
her
no rights
father.
back then.
Well, yeah, I mean it wasn't.
Yeah.
They didn't touch hugely on how William and her would get together, but
well, I'm sure having the Prince Edward behind your back
oh yeah,
helps a lot.
it's like that, and that whole thing. I mean,
Yeah.
he literally got arrested
W-
for entering the tournament
we'll
without
talk about
the
that.
nobility.
But also, one little thing, the gentleman Pete the Summoner Simon the Summoner and Pete the partner.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey Chaucer, like when he's being freed from them, and like he mentioned that he will write them down in history, and people will know how much of a disgusting human beings they are. That is a reference to the fact that Simon the Summoner and Pete the partner are actually characters in Canterbury Tales.
Gotcha.
So that's
okay. Yeah. So that again, definitely went over my head.
It just shows love to the source material and and having some fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, negatives, and there are very few, in my opinion.
Agreed.
I think Count Adhemar, while probably an accurate depiction of what a nobleman who was really good at jousting and warring and everything like that,
mm-hmm.
He's a very cliched villain.
Yes,
with no real motivations other than, hey, you're a poor looking knight. Fuck you. I'm better than you. I'm going to win.
Right. I agree. It is, especially being as old as it is. It's ripe cliche material.
Yes.
Even if it makes perfect sense. And that happens sometimes. I mean, some cliches make perfect sense, but it doesn't stop them from feeling cliche.
Yes. And especially for like early 2000s villain, like it's cliched out at the book.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, all the love in the world for Rufus Sewell. He's a terrific
He made it work, but
yeah,
it's a very cliche character.
He did, and that's the thing. He was a cliche bad guy actor back then. Yes. I mean, he was the one who would come in and just twirl his mustache and be like, I am evil.
Because I don't remember there's not one scene of this guy being a redeemable person.
No.
Like,
the father from Parasite was a lot better than Count Adhemar.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. And lastly, and this might be controversial, but I'm going to say, I don't like Jocelyn.
Actually, I agree with that.
She is a very bland character. She's rather boring.
Yes.
And it's just like her scenes with William don't really I'm not really excited about that. The best scene that she's in my opinion, is the scene when Will writes the love letter.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because we have cut back to Will and all his group writing the letter, and it's really good.
Yes.
Again, just shows these connections these characters have, and the dance scene.
Yes.
And again, it's mainly because Heath Ledger's so goddamn charming that when he's doing the dance, it's charming as fuck.
Yeah.
But I don't like the scene when William finds out he's being arrested and Jocelyn tries to talk to him and about running away and everything like that.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. But a lot of her scenes just don't land with me. They're not that entertaining.
Yeah,
she's not that. There's no real depth to her character. She's literally just. I know it's offensive, but she's just the stereotypical. Oh, she's a noble woman who has a mind of her own, and it's okay, we have seen that 1,000 times.
I was gonna say I wouldn't even say they did a great job making her seem that independent.
But there's scenes of when they go into the church and she just kind of she ignores the traditions and everything like that and just kind of blows it off, Right.
Yeah, I agree. They dropped the ball on her character, and I just didn't think she and William had much chemistry either.
No, they really didn't. And that's a shame because there are scenes when it's when William is talking about his love for her,
mm-hmm.
I'm okay, I believe it. But when she's talking about how much she cares about William, I'm do you?
Yeah, I would much rather have seen him end up with the blacksmith.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
She was more interesting, more entertaining, and
it had more character.
Yeah, it just would have made for a better story. I think. I know it would be hard to fit in a great love story between them.
Yes, the love story is basically just tacked on because at that time Heath Ledger was still kind of the teenage heartthrob.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to add something there. But this is in all honesty, this is probably more of a sports movie than anything else.
Yeah.
it's just a very old sport, but it's
Yeah.
still a sports movie.
Yeah, so the romance clearly wasn't the main focus.
No.
I still wish they had been able to fix it up a little bit.
Yeah,
It's got to have some flaws.
Yeah. Also, okay, there's 2 deleted scenes that I found for this movie. I don't know if you've seen them.
I saw at least one of them.
Okay, there's one where we meet Geoffrey Chaucer's wife. Like it's like I think it's before the tournament in London or Paris. I'm not sure where they, but like like he's like running around naked at night, and like they think, oh, he's been gambling again, and like no, he's hanging out with his wife, and it's just a quick scene like where you get to meet her, and like she mentions how like, oh, I've heard all about you guys, and Geoffrey talks about you in such colorful detail. Again, playing up the idea that Geoffrey Chaucer is a real writer in real life,
right?
And it was a very pointless scene. I'm glad they cut it out. It was nice to see Geoffrey have like some more character besides he's a former gambler and he's really good at talking.
Yes.
The second scene is fantastic, and I do not know why they cut it from the film. During the scene when William's imprisoned, all of his friends come to help him and like just like stand by his side, and Geoffrey Chaucer gives a very roaring speech about how much William is the noblest man in the world, and like how dare you, the common people, besmirch him for trying to be better and being a true nobleman, and like when he's just one of you. And I don't know why they cut this from the film. It's fantastic.
I've watched it again since you showed it to me the first time. I really love that speech. And when I was watching the movie, like I actually I paused it at the moment where it cuts that scene out.
It's a very abrupt cut because Geoffrey Chaucer's like telling the people like to listen to him real fast, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's Edward walking in the screen.
Yeah, and that felt, as a result, like kind of an unearned intervention, or something. Yeah,
because your friends are very dedicated to you. It's like they're just standing there, like Geoffrey. Like if Geoffrey had given this impartial plea, like literally on the verge of tears, talking about how Will is pure. His will is pure gold. Will's will is pure gold.
Right. Yeah. So the way they do it in the movie without that scene, it looks like the prince is just intervening because he was upset at people throwing stuff at William.
Yeah, not because Geoffrey Chaucer and like his friends had like given this impartial plea, and like it actually turned the crowd onto their side in some ways.
Yeah. So
which is great.
They made a big mistake.
Big mistake. Last thing to cover about this movie. The big thing about the movie is that William has been declared that he is of ancient nobility by Sir Edward, who has personal historians find this out for him. And he declares that this is beyond contestation and that no one can question it because he's the prince and the future king of England. Was he lying?
I have to assume he was lying because he didn't name, who it was, and he didn't... I think he was lying, yeah.
Yeah, I think so, 100%.
And I don't understand why he couldn't have just knighted him and said, hey, now he's nobility, now he can enter the tournament.
And who knows, maybe back in those days they couldn't, maybe you had to be of a noble line to be a knight. And I think they said like you had to be of noble birth to be a knight. So maybe, I don't know. I'm sure it's back these days now everyone can be
I guess maybe the first generation wouldn't count.
Who knows? I think it's very obvious because like he even like he whispers that Edward or William, but like oh what you're a knightly man, your people, your friends love you, and like basically you had the best qualities of a knight, just not the birth, and like let me fix that basically, which I think again plays with the idea like that William showed that he is actually worthy of being a nobleman, even though he's not a nobleman, and so like Edward rewards that. But I think it's pretty obvious because even like the crowd in the movie like is like when he mentioned like he's of a noble ancient line, and they're kind of like, what the fuck? What's this guy talking about?
If you remind people it's beyond contestation,
yeah, it's like
just saying, do not ask me for references.
Like I don't need to show my work.
Yeah, like he's Constantine's grandson. That's it. Just don't look it up.
Yeah. But again, I think that adds the thing like where like William showed mercy to Edward during the tournament, and he showed that he would still fight him, even though, yes, I know you're of the future king of England, but I'm still going to compete with you because, well, that's what you're here to do. And
it's very brave.
Yes, and just so I think Edward is clearly knighting William just because he feels that William deserves it, not because he actually is of noble birth.
Yeah, so, and we agree.
Yes. Anything else to talk about with this movie before we wrap up?
I think we've covered just about everything. Fantastic movie.
It's the second best Heath Ledger movie of all time.
Yes.
The first one's Dark Knight, obviously. but this one may be the best. I heard a lot of people say 10 Things I Hate About You as well. I've never seen it.
I still haven't seen that one, and I know it's a classic, so I want to. I've also seen. It was a movie called Four Feathers, I think, which I recommend to people. It definitely went under the radar.
Also, The Patriot. I liked him in Patriot a lot. Although I will say, The Patriot for historical accuracy, completely out the window.
Shit movie in most regards.
Yes.
But we're not going to blame Heath Ledger for that one.
No.
He was doing his best.
No, exactly.
We're going to blame Mel Gibson. Go figure.
No. Mel Gibson was the fault of that movie. No, that movie had the stuff on screen is good. It's just the writing that portraying the Englishmen as the most villainous, evil people ever to put on God's green earth.
I know they went way overboard with that.
If you're interested, look up Armchair Historian. He does videos about historical movies, and he rips that movie apart.
Yeah. History Buffs is another channel that
maybe it is. Maybe it's History.
It
Buff.
Is. Might be. Is it a young British guy?
Yes, and
I think we're talking about.
Okay, I thought it was Armchair Historian. Maybe I'm thinking of a different one. History Buff. Yeah, he's great.
Mm-hmm.
So Jesse,
yes,
you get to choose the next movie for the next episode.
Okay,
what are we choosing?
You planted the idea in my head after the last episode, and it's along the same wavelength of why we did Knight's Tale. For this one, I think we should talk about Atlantis.
The Lost Empire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. All right. I have not watched that movie in a while, so I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right. Well, this episode was actually less than an hour long, so I think that's a new record for us.
Yay!
More digestible content. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. We'll be back relatively soon with another episode of a breath of fresh movies.
Yes.
I have been Alex. That's Jesse. Thank you, and take care.
Bye.